The Great Outdoors, presented by Camp Abbott Trading Company.
In the waning days of World War II, 11 American servicemen lost their lives in the crash of a B-24 bomber in the Pueblo Mountains in southeastern Oregon. It was February 9th, 1945. In this week's Great Outdoors, Brian Jennings revisits this forgotten piece of history and takes you to the wreckage site where evidence of the crash still exists today.
This is one of the most remote areas of Oregon, right north of the Nevada border, and we're in search of a military plane that crashed in 1945. And we're on our way to that site right now. It's a mystery to this day as to why it crashed.
These are the Pueblo Mountains in southeast Oregon. The nearest towns are Fields and Denial, with a combined population of about 160 residents. 72 years ago, a U.S. military B-24 bomber was on a training mission from Boise to California and returning when something went terribly wrong.
February 9th, 1945, a B-24 came in through here and crashed.
Right.
What happened?
Well, what happened is a mystery because the flight that was coming through here had already gone to Hamilton Field in California, and they were on a nighttime navigational trip, and they'd already made it over the top of this mountain, flying just a little ways to the east. For some reason they turned back and lost altitude, because when they went over they were at 10,000 and they would have easily cleared the mountain range here. The official investigation never came up with a cause.
Now, had they been 50 to say 100 feet higher, they might have cleared this.
Yeah, they probably would have. If they'd had another 100 foot of elevation, they could have actually kept going the direction they were headed and ended up in the valley behind us.
All on board perished.
11 people met their end here, and I think it might have been a surprise to them when they did, so it wasn't something that they agonized over for too long, I don't think, because they were flying at night, so they couldn't see the ground very well, if at all, and so they didn't know they were close to crashing, although there may have been something that happened before that. When they lost altitude, something had gone wrong. But still, people died here, and for a long time, until 1997, there were still people buried, pieces of people buried here. That sounds kind of gruesome, but a crash like this was a catastrophic crash. This is a Pratt & Whitney Twin Wasp engine. Much of the engine was made out of aluminum alloys, so that's why everything's pretty shiny up in here. But then you get down to the cylinder heads and the cooling fans and the exhaust especially, made out of steel, and it's rusting. And then this right here, over to our right, is the landing gear. It's pretty massive landing gear, and it was hydraulically controlled, because you can see the stainless steel plating on this hydraulic column.
There's a connection between this site, which is in one of the most remote areas of North America,
Right.
and Arlington Cemetery.
Yeah, back in 1997, some people were poking around up here, quote unquote, and came up with this human remains, human bones. And they talked to our county sheriff and got in touch with the Army, and the Army sent a group of people from the Central Identification Laboratory in Hawaii over here to excavate this site for human remains and personal effects like rings and pins and money. And they came in here, and they were in here about 2 weeks excavating at this site, finding human remains, and then they took them all back to Silhai with them, and about 2 years later they reinterred all of the remains together in one grave at Arlington National Cemetery.
was it like to be out there, Brian?
Donna, this is one of the most remote spots in Oregon. It is lonely out there. There's not a person for another 10 miles in either direction. The towns of Denaio and Fields are the closest. There are 160 population between them. But nonetheless, veterans are starting to get up there. Even though it's a rugged track, you have to have the right vehicle. I mean, there are mudslides and creeks and boulders to cross. But veterans are getting up there to honor their brothers. And I found a can of beer stuck away in one of the engine parts that was unopened. Somebody had put it there to honor a World War II hero.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Welcome.
Very, very special story. And a special thanks to our great outdoor sponsor, Camp Abbott Trading Company in Sun River, for giving us the time and resources to explore the lakes, rivers, and mountains across our beautiful state every Wednesday night on Central Oregon Daily. We'll be right back.